Federal law requires employers to obtain written consent from their employees before performing a background check. Usually what happens is there's a page within your application where you check a box that says, yes, I consent to a background check. That authorization, however, cannot be buried within an application. It has to be a standalone page that has a very clear description about what will happen and what they're going to use a background check for. Without that standalone page, any background check that's performed by your employer is illegal. Unauthorized background checks will allow the employee to sue their employer for obtaining information about them that's not otherwise public. Of course, crimes and those sorts of things are part of the public record, but your employer only has that level of access if you specifically tell them by completing a written form that, yes, you do have my consent to obtain my background check. Without that written authorization from you, the employer snooping into your background is completely illegal. The Fair Credit Reporting Act is a federal statute that gives employees a tremendous amount of rights regarding background checks. Number one, the most basic right would be whether your employer even has authority or the ability to obtain a copy of your background check report. Two, and most commonly, the rights under federal law would be if there is a crime that you did not commit that's on your background check report, you as a consumer have the ability to sue that background check company for populating a background check report with a crime, a felony, a DUI, what have you, that does not belong to you. Legal recourse against an employer for obtaining your background check without consent is simply a matter of contacting a consumer protection attorney. Whether it's Loker Law or someone different, the act of pulling your background check report without you completing a document specifically and unambiguously allowing your employer to do so is outright illegal under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Pursuant to federal law, specifically the Fair Credit Reporting Act, if someone pulls your background check and you find that there is a false crime on there, it could be anything, a felony or anything along those lines, that's something that will allow you to engage in the dispute process with that background check company. And if they say, actually, we believe this crime belongs to you, that's when you have rights pursuant to the Fair Credit Reporting Act to sue that background check company for populating a background check report with a crime that does not belong to you. One particular case that we handled at Loker Law involved a mom who was working at a local retailer and making ends meet, but in an hourly position where she was frankly struggling to support herself and her family. Eventually, after years of trying to get a more career-style job where she had obtained a salary, she gets in the door, and unfortunately on Christmas Eve, she got a letter from who she believed was going to be her new employer. That letter, which she opened in front of her children, told her that, we're sorry, we understand you went through the training process and orientation. Your background check shows that you have been arrested for trafficking in methamphetamine. The mom, of course, had never seen meth in her life. She had never sold a drug. She'd never sold anything. So instead of having this dream job, she is surrounded by her children on Christmas Eve, learning that she is being called a felon who lied about her background. What we were able to do at Loker Law was sue the background check company because the process they went through in populating those crimes on our client's background check report were heinous, for lack of a better term. This never should have happened. She should have been able to get her dream job and set herself down a different path on behalf of her family through that employment. Luckily, the case resolved in putting multiple six figures in her pocket, and it didn't necessarily make up for what she went through, but it did help her go down the path of being able to support her kids and her kids' kids into the future. If you find yourself in a situation where there are false crimes being reported to your background check report, give Loker Law a call. What we can do is take you through the dispute process, and if the background check company continues to ignore you and continues to ignore your rights pursuant to these federal laws, we can take them to task on your behalf.